Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's begin. So, welcome, Paul. Welcome to the talk show. Thank you for taking out some time to speak with me today. And
Sure.
before moving forward, can you please quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course. Yeah, my name's Paul Neuhausen. I am one of the original Hyperloop Core 100 engineers that joined the Hyperloop Transportation Technologies team back in 2012 when it was in very much a startup phase with Dirk Allborn and a few other folks from the UCLA Design Center, that kind of thing. We met originally at the LAX facility and then quickly moved to UCLA, and then from there to the Culver City Air Hangar. So I remember those early days. They were really interesting.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And now you are writing a book about that. Is that correct?
Right. Here's the idea: is there's a lot of newer Hyperloop projects coming out in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Many of whom were in the pod competitions in Los Angeles at the SpaceX facility, and Elon Musk, patted all these guys in the back, and they should get some strong kudos.
Mm-hmm.
Before all that was happening, a good 3, 4, 5 years, there was a lot of activity in the background from mid-career professionals and designers, architects like myself, who did a lot of the preliminary studies on routes, route optimization. That's my team, is the route optimization team as a project manager. And we identified a lot of key indicators about where the best routes would be and some of the key numbers for North America, at least, not so much for Europe. But,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Okay,
kind of what's going on.
great. And if my understanding is correct, you also have your own company running in parallel, right?
Right. My full-time work is not that of a Hyperloop professional or Hyperloop design person. Really, I have my own legal practice. I own some property and whatnot. So I'm trying to do. I started the Hyperloop as really kind of a visionary thing. I came out of the telecommunications industry of the 1990s,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a lot of interesting subject matter that I could chew through, as well as coming out of academia. I've been published a few times, and so I saw a real opportunity then to apply my skills in statistics, cartography, and helping out Dirk Allborn in the early days of our endeavor. So, yes.
Okay, great. And when did you first start your own company?
Back in 1999, I
Wow,
bought some
that's a long time
property.
ago.
Yeah, they all say 2001, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sound so old. 20
Okay.
years ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I came back from working and living in Japan for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed it over there, but it was time to come home. Came home to
Yeah.
Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles originally,
Mm-hmm.
and I bought some property and really learned really the from the ground up and from a very hands-on position what property management, what dealing with tenants,
Mm-hmm.
and all that fun stuff is. It's a lot
Yeah.
more work than most people think it is.
Okay.
So I've been managing my own properties since that time, as
Mm-hmm.
well as working in the telecommunications industry. That was an invaluable bit of experience that I got that I've been able to apply in my career up until now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so, like, okay, you've been at it at a long time. So,
Yep.
would you say the entrepreneur life chose you, or did you choose it?
You know, I thought when I was coming out of college in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
that I was going to walk into kind of a white collar setting.
Mm-hmm.
But there was so much disruption in the late 1990s telecommunication industry that even though it was very attractive positions, great pay and all, it was essentially an outside sales position that I occupied, and I've been still in that outside sales model since then.
Okay.
Since that time, well, and to your point, since that time, most of corporate America has been disrupted so much that
Mm-hmm.
the idea of a traditional office space job or position is, it's we're all at home now using Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is what we predicted 20 years ago
Mm-hmm.
was we're going to be working from home. The office spaces are going to be gone. The storefronts are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Nobody said it was going to be a pandemic that was going to make it happen or to push
Mm-hmm.
it over the edge, but most of the technology that we're using right now was developed, the idea of it at least, was developed a good 20, 25 years ago during .com 1.0. So
Mm-hmm.
I was already ready for it, and I think it was something that my generation really had to embrace because it's not the world that my father worked in.
Okay.
And the millennials are going through something completely different as well. So
Yeah.
it's very dynamic, I think. So it's all good.
That's true. And according to you, for the people who are just entering or starting their own new businesses, what would you say is a basic skill set required to start a business?
I think the biggest one I've seen is one of adaptation,
Mm-hmm.
revitalization
Mm-hmm.
of your workspace around you, but also really keeping an open mind and having a visionary sense that's very long term. The
Okay.
technology is going to change a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom has been around for like 10 years,
Yeah.
but it doubled in its adoption in the last year
Mm-hmm.
because of the pandemic. So,
Correct.
most people are aware of it. They were kind of like, oh, yeah, it's, Zoom or it's teleconferencing, this and that, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of strictly relying on a telecom-based economy, or where you're face to face, but your distances are essentially intercontinental.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we kind of talked about that back in the .com era. People thought we were crazy, or they thought,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay, that'll happen in 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of the disruptions, now we're living in it, and I think
Yeah.
again, your generation especially kind of thinks nothing of it. There was another generation that I had to convince to say, look, this is where things are going.
Yeah.
And I thought they probably thought to themselves, okay, I'm going to get out and
Mm-hmm.
retire, or I'm going to go move to Montana or
Mm-hmm.
Alberta and go
Yeah.
go sell everything and go live in this isolated life. If that's where things are going.
Okay.
And I know in California, there's a lot of people like that who
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to leave because of the changes that they're seeing. So
That's
I
good.
would say really embracing that vision is a good bit of advice for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so how difficult would you say it is to start a business in 2021, especially given this pandemic situation?
I would say look at your key resources. Look at
Mm-hmm.
your core competency. What do you do best? If you had to walk outside your front door tomorrow morning,
Mm-hmm.
you know what what three words come to your mind? And
Yeah.
I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm probably more involved in the financial and legal industry than I am involved in any technical
Mm-hmm.
aspect of developing technology per se. I'm actuating technology. I'm applying technology to leverage
Mm-hmm.
what I do as a property owner, as a legal professional, and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can do it with very low overhead cost. So I would say for your generation, I mean, you guys, the cool thing is you have some really great technology.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of the analog to digital transition, and believe me, there was, it took a while.
Yeah.
But now that everything is basically a digital modality,
Mm-hmm.
you guys don't have much overhead. That's the good news. The
Mm-hmm.
bad news is you're fighting for market share.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at, hey, if I'm good at what I do, then
Mm-hmm.
the market share should be pretty normal, pretty natural. It'll come up without much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that's probably what I would tell your generation straight out. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so while, starting your own business or maybe writing your own book, what were some of the major hurdles that you faced during that time?
I would say, like I was just on a call with some fellow Canadians yesterday that are working on Hyperloop as well. I
Mm-hmm.
probably shouldn't give their name away, so I'll leave that to be another discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's coming together, having a commonality of vision or a commonality of purpose.
Okay.
Relating to the Hyperloop, everybody wants to see this thing made. Oh yeah, let's get this Hyperloop thing going.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds really good. It's a lot of energy, okay?
Yeah.
But when it gets down to brass tacks, when it gets down to, okay, we need to pour the concrete, we need to build the actual tube
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, that's where it gets a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
And that's actually where, again, relating to my idea of what do you do best?
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed in the early days of the Hyperloop, especially, it got beyond the visionary kind of creative people and like, oh, we could do this and that, to like, okay, we need an electrical engineer here. We need we need a chemical engineer. We need a construction person. We need this. We need that. There are very specific skill sets that are coming from other industries, quite frankly. The Hyperloop's never been done. That was one of the things I discussed with these, your fellow Canadians yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, look, it's not going to be built tomorrow. Nobody's ever built a Hyperloop.
Yeah.
It's still in the test phases. They're gathering data.
Mm-hmm.
You got Virgin out there in the Las Vegas desert, Nevada desert space in Clark County. That's fantastic. I'm so happy for Mr. Richard Branson, Sir
Mm-hmm.
Branson, and his whole endeavor. But it's really comes down to rethinking how we move people and packages and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much a paradigm shift in how we think. It is not high-speed rail.
Uh-huh.
It is not the Matterhorn at Disneyland. It's not Space Mountain. It's the Hyperloop. I mean, like I said in 2013, I coined the term like a Learjet with no wings through
Mm-hmm.
a tube at sub-Mach 1.
Okay.
And Hyperloop TT has been using those terms since then. And, and it gets out there, and that's cool. I'm glad everybody's using that term. That is
Mm-hmm.
really what it's like. And what I mean that is there's no air in that tube.
Yeah.
So you better hope that the tube gets from point A to point B without breaking down, because it needs air, it needs oxygen. Otherwise, it'll be just like a decompression job way up there with no air, and you're, right. But my point is we're very much in an entrepreneurial phase here. It's an exploratory phase still, even with all the expertise coming forward after this thing, after about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, Elon Musk put it together in this Hyperloop Alpha PDF and said, here guys, here's the idea. He wasn't the only one who's come up with this. There's
Mm-hmm.
other people that, I really am still learning about sources and whatnot
Mm-hmm.
that will be given credit in this publication. But he's kind of the Prince Henry, the navigator,
Mm-hmm.
who has to start this thing. He's somebody has to get this thing and say, let's build this. And he obviously has a lot of input and a lot of influence. So, I hope that answered your question.
Okay.
Sorry. Wordy at best, right?
Mm-hmm. So apart from working, what do you do when you're not working?
When I'm not working on this, when I'm not working on the Hyperloop,
When you're not working in general?
when I'm not, what? Right now it's really interesting with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I can drive my family out to Malibu and walk on the beach, and not have to worry about social distancing. That's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in Southern California, it's right now it's January. It is cold,
Yeah.
but it's still California, and I can still pick oranges off my trees out front of my house. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I'm, I got a kid who's going to college next year, and I don't have much free time for much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoy being a dad right now. Being a dad and a father, essentially. That's where my main focus is. It's when you get married, and you have a child, your whole life changes. It's not about you anymore. And as a single man, it becomes this like, oh my God, I have all these people that are dependent on me, and so you really have to produce. And it's a very different. It's a big shift for a lot of men.
Definitely.
Some like it and some don't.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you share an important lesson that you learned from life?
Yeah, you know, I made it through the financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I kept my home. My neighbors lost their homes. The
Oh.
guy next to me and the guy behind me, kitty corner, they're, up and down the street in LA, in much of the United States, foreclosures were in a crazy situation.
Yeah.
And, the one thing I learned that I brought forward with me into
Mm-hmm.
this year, 2021, is just the idea of dogged perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a pretty bright guy. I've got an advanced degree and this and that, but you know, it doesn't mean much if you're not if you don't have dogged perseverance and you really apply yourself,
Mm-hmm.
such that all this intellectualism. If you don't apply it, it just becomes froth. It's not nothing comes of it.
Mm.
So
That's
the
right.
life lesson, is one of struggle and perseverance, but one of showing actual proof in your
Mm-hmm.
life, and that's part of what I would call my human revolution over the
Okay.
last 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all good.
Okay. What keeps you moving forward in life?
Well, let's see here. I got a wife that yells at me. No, I'm kidding.
Uh-huh.
I would say it's my inner motivation. I mean, I want to see all this stuff that people have been dreaming about, not just with the Hyperloop, but a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the electric vehicles and the space technologies and whatnot.
Yeah.
I want to see these things come to fruition
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like if we don't do it, we're going to be stuck in this technological dark age.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that the United States has been deindustrialized over the last 20 to 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure, the corporate and job infrastructure that we used to have just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it does somewhat
Mm-hmm.
on the coasts. There's a lot of infrastructure. If you go to the interior of the United States, it's pretty much what they call hollowed out.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to see through my perseverance, through this, the technological innovation, with the
Mm-hmm.
Hyperloop obviously being kind of this spectacle of innovation,
Mm-hmm.
along with all the other stuff, is I want to see my country rebuilt in a way that people can really benefit. Everybody is happy, and they got food on the table and a job and whatnot.
Yeah.
In the way it used to be, but then it's a 21st century version of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as Americans and Canadians, but especially Americans, North Americans, that's what people look to us for, is to show that it can be done and most certainly will be done. So, that's, I'm getting on, and, I'm not a young guy anymore. So I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Um,
How was
so
that, Rohit?
yeah. What would you say is your do you have a favorite book? And if so, yes, then why is that your favorite book?
I would still say my favorite book is The Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Tolkien, um, and right after I read The Hobbit as a kid, my mother and I read it together. I guess when I don't know how old I was. I went right into The Lord of the Rings
Mm-hmm.
and the Silmarillion, and as much as I am like this 21st century technologist type, I really find that literature an adventure, and it really takes you into a place where you can feel human emotion, and you can deal with the characters, live out what they're doing, and follow a saga, if you will.
Yeah.
And I must say that what I feel like I'm doing with the Hyperloop kind of is like that, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm not banging two coconut shells together and like a Monty Python movie, but it's somewhat of a saga with
Mm-hmm.
Hyperloop. And I think, again, the idea of persevering and whatnot comes from that early raising I did with sword and sorcery work, Conan the Barbarian, but mainly J.R.R. Tolkien and a lot of his texts and whatnot.
Okay.
That's what really I draw a lot of inspiration from. So it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a pledge for 2021?
A pledge,
Yeah.
like a monetary pledge?
Anything,
I'm kidding.
any aim, any goals for 2021?
I would say it's to get through this pandemic. It's
Uh-huh.
to keep um, it's to keep my city together. Quite frankly, I'm a practicing Buddhist,
Okay.
and our whole objective is peace, culture, and education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if I can just go around imbuing people around me with that kind of determination, then we can see that what we have is worth saving, what we have is worth revitalizing,
Yeah.
and moving forward beyond these differences and whatever people are bickering about.
Mm-hmm.
Which, quite frankly, when it gets down to it, there are some problems.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to remember that most of what brings us together is what we agree on,
That's
and
true.
that's what we should be focusing on, and rebuilding our societies, and that I think is going to relieve human suffering the most. That's really my pledge, I think, for 2021 into the 2020s is just to continue that,
Mm-hmm.
that basic perseverance. Like I said, I've kind of taken care of my own house,
Mm-hmm.
literally and metaphorically. Now I think it's time to go out and just keep moving the markers farther and farther out, and so that I can really work with other people, a new generation like yours, and
Yeah.
really make that happen. So it's good.
Okay. Great. Okay, so now we have reached the short rapid fire questions of this interview. So I'm going to ask you short questions. Try to keep your answers short and to the point as well.
Okay.
And if you come across any question that you don't want to answer, you can just say skip and I'll move on to the next one.
All right.
Okay, so first question is are you an iPhone or Android person?
Right now I'm Android. I'm making the conversion to iPhone next month. Boom.
Okay, okay.
First question.
What do you do when you, what is the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning?
Uh, I put water in my Buddhist altar.
Okay. Three things that no one knows about you.
And you want me to tell you? Okay. My favorite color is red. Um, what's going to call it? I don't know if I want to tell people. I don't know.
That's up to you.
I like eating peanut butter too much with ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that's annoying to my wife. She hates it, but
Mm-hmm.
okay. She knows. Okay, sorry. And one more. I don't know. I don't eat tofu. I used to,
Okay.
not anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm. What's the craziest thing someone has done for you?
Craziest thing someone's done for me.
Mm-hmm.
Either good or bad. I guess
It could be in any way.
either way. I would. Oh, my brother put dog vomit in front of me one time and
Oh.
watched my facial reaction. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, we were both
Okay.
laughing, but he was
Uh-huh.
laughing harder than me to begin with. It was a
Uh-huh.
little. It was right next to my lunch, so like
Oh my
this
God.
shovel full of dog vomit,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, "Oh, that's great, man. Thanks." That was the weirdest thing. Okay.
Okay. Um, what's the one thing that you would like to change about yourself?
I think for 2021, especially and beyond, part of my pledge is to really get into deeper empathetic listening.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've the last 5-10 years I've had to struggle to take care of my own situation. Now I want to do deep listening or deep empathetic listening and learning from other people's situations. That's
Okay.
what
A rumor about you that you wish were true.
I really I got $1 million. Hey, I wish that
Okay.
was true. I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite.
Okay. Um, what's your spirit animal?
What's my what?
Spirit animal.
Crow. Crow.
Okay.
Like they crow Indian crow. Like the
Uh-huh.
crow. Yeah.
What's the easiest way to piss you off?
Um, I would say to disagree with me. My wife does that all the time.
Okay.
I would say it's to take something that I hold of value and kind of disrespect it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of an attitudinal thing.
Okay.
I've been getting a lot better about it, lately. So it's all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you have, or maybe what's the most interesting thing that you have in your purse or wallet?
A Japanese survival knife. It's like a here. I'll pull it out real quick.
Okay.
No, real quick. It's fun.
Uh-huh.
I got this as a gift years ago, right?
Uh-huh.
And you pull it out. It fits in your wallet.
Yeah.
It's one of these survival type knife
Yeah.
things.
I think
Cool.
I've seen it before.
It's like geek heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love carrying this around. I can't take it to the airport or anything. I have to leave it in the car, but
Mm-hmm.
I love just having it because I know I've got it. And if I need it, it's there. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Sounds good.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the coolest thing
My nerd
I've seen
handle,
so far.
right?
Okay. What's the one thing that you own that you wish you didn't?
Debt.
Okay.
Credit card debt. There you go.
Uh-huh.
I own it. I wish I didn't have it, but I mean it's manageable. So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have to rate yourself from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest on the following. First one is quick learner,
10.
book enthusiast,
What is it?
book enthusiast.
9.
Mm-hmm. As a leader,
8.
as a friend,
7.
okay, as a husband.
Oh, oops. I get myself an 8. I'll be optimistic.
Okay. Okay, well, with that, we have reached the last question of this interview. So before we end it, could you think of 3 other CEOs or 3 other business owners who you think you can introduce to me to do this interview?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
You want them right now, or?
That's up to you. You can email them to me
I
later.
do have 3, but yes, no, I'd be happy to do that, Rohit. I think that's great. In fact, I'll introduce you to the Transpod folks, as I mentioned, your fellow Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
They're up in there in Toronto with you, so that not a problem.
That's great.
In fact, that was my idea to introduce you to some of the leaders of the other Hyperloop teams.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. That's amazing.
Cool. All right, man.
Okay, so with that, we have reached the end of this interview. So thank you, Paul. Thank you for taking out so much time to do this interview with me, and thank you for sharing, glimpses of your life as well as glimpses about your background, your work, your book that you're writing, and all of that. So thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome, Rohit. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Take care.